It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical, Mains and Duts. I'm your host, Mains, my colleague with some of the greatest hearing of all time. It's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
See, unfortunately, speaking as someone who breathes very loudly himself, I'm told, I also have the ears of a hawk. Therefore, I am treated to the joy that the two people who listen to this podcast don't experience, and that is the cacophony that comes out of your house while we're recording.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's lucky for you. I see you've took what I'm going to describe now as a Michael Challoner approach to your light shining off your bond tonight through the window.
Yeah, that does need. I had to change the light bulbs, and unfortunately, to get easier access to them, I have changed them round.
Oh, this is spectacular podcasting.
Did you see, by the way, that our secret has been revealed as to what we actually wear while we're?
Of course, it was only a matter of time before everyone started wearing those podcast unis. So I'm glad to see that it's now available via, is it H&M or something? I don't know.
Something like that. $35, and I'm not paying it again.
Worth every penny. Worth every penny, Neil. This week we are in the midst of measuring people, speed, height, jump. It's
asking inappropriate questions about their family.
Exactly, which I'm sure we'll never get hold of. So we're going to talk combine winners and losers. Not in any real depth and cleverness, but in some detail. And also, players got tagged, players got set free, Neil, and some players just didn't get tagged. And we will talk about them as well. But before all that, we start, as we always do in the off-season, with Weird World. And before we start, how many times do you check stuff before you send it? Well, you know me, that's probably 0%. That's normally 0% of the time. You say that, but have I ever been as bad as the Utah Attorneys Board? As attorneys, every lawyer in Utah just received a picture of boobs.
Awesome.
Yeah. Attorneys across Utah received an unexpected piece of email from the state bar on Monday. A picture of boobs. We are horrified, John Baldwin said. I don't believe John. He told Fox 13 in Salt Lake City. Okay, maybe I do believe Bob.
Why?
Based on his locale.
Mormons can have 13 wives, can't they?
I don't know if you can see all their boobs at the same time, though.
Oh, right.
We are investigating to discover how this occurred. Our goal is to find out what happened and ensure it never happens again. The Utah State Bar also tweeted an apology. Apologies to all who received an inappropriate email from the Utah State Bar. We are aware of the situation and investigating the matter. The email contained the subject line, 2018 Spring Convention walk-ins welcome, learn how, along with an image promoting the March 8 to 10th event. Below that is a woman with breasts. It is a woman with breasts. It's on Huffington Post, so it's blanked out. But what's the stupidest thing you've ever not checked up and sent?
See, I don't really have a problem because I sound fastidious with my spelling. It's more opening my mouth and not thinking. Like the time at school where I said, this is the type of thing that we should have a mass debate about.
Excellent. My favourite one is not mine. A friend of mine, Mr. Stuart Flynn, was in charge of training, and he calls himself Stu. Sent out an all-user email to around 200 people, and just so people are aware, Outlook believes that Stu isn't a word, but stud is. So he sent the email round to all 200 people saying, "Kind regards, stud." I promptly ran round the office laughing my head off.
Yeah, Disco Stu doesn't advertise. There was, of course, a famous incident where we inquired as to where one of our party was, and he told us he was just getting his boat.
That lived in infamy, especially that night as we were both drunk and made possibly 750 boat jokes on the way home.
And also the ironic thing as well is you were supposed to look after my coat, and you lost it.
That's because I rule.
Yeah, I was cold.
Yeah, you always are. Things that happen after we finish getting drunk, me losing a coat and what you've done to me on numerous occasions, I think you fine with the coat. Second and last story related to Weird World Dutton is a pretty simple one. Like, when you decide you are a god and you want to get off, you can do whatever you want. A first-class passenger tried to open an emergency door mid-flight with shouts of, "I am God." Passengers on a flight from San Francisco to Boise, Idaho. Sounds like a random journey, but anyway. Got a scare on Monday when a traveller in the first-class section tried to open an emergency exit door. "I am God," the unidentified woman can be heard repeating in footage of the incident that was posted on Boise ABC affiliate KIVI. Passengers told the CBS station that the woman shouted, "I want to die, get me off this plane," before running for the exit. Although the woman was restrained aboard the SkyWest flight 5449, which operates as United Express, the plane was not diverted. She was later taken into custody. You ever had a weird plane experience, Dutton?
Yeah, I have. I was asked to calm down by a stewardess because apparently I was upsetting the other passengers because during turbulence they don't want to hear the words, "Oh Christ, this is it."
My favourite one I've done is once a load of water biscuits was spewed up. And then
No. Just to correct you, it weren't water biscuits. It was 2 packets of Haribo and a bottle of Lucozade.
It was, and I was there. And then he went up to people saying, "I've just been sick." Cool, Neil. Thanks for that.
They needed to know.
Everyone needs to know. Luckily, I haven't been on many flights, although I do like many flights with that as a kid, although I do like the idea of someone pretending to be a god, thinking they can open plane doors and fly.
The issue I have is, why would the Almighty buy a plane ticket? And if you are the Almighty, just jumping out of a plane is not going to bring about your demise, surely.
No, but I'm wondering if she's like, "I am a god, I can do what I want. I don't care for you peons, you can all die, but I'm going to be able to fly and land."
But she said she wanted to die.
Well, she did there, but then she stopped it. So I don't know. As always, as we say, we love Weird World. It's dead funny. There's loads of cool stories. So if you are interested in Weird World, send your stories to @waxing_lyrical. I couldn't get waxing lyrical, so please send it there, and I will make sure they are read on the air. Right, so first things first, NFL style. We wanted to talk about players who've been tagged and not tagged, and the impact upon them, and I guess on their team. So if we start at the beginning, Dutton, with the first person who was tagged, I believe, and that's Jarvis, 5 yards of catch Landry. He was tagged for somewhere in the region of $16 million by the Miami Dolphins. Although now it seems to suggest that tagging was so they could trade him. Although I'm not 100% sure who's paying him $16 million. But anyway, how does this impact them and their team, do you think, in terms of Jarvis Landry?
Well, by signing the tag, they can't rescind it. So he's getting at least $16 million this year. They've painted themselves into a corner because, as you say, very few teams are going to want to expend that type of money on a slot receiver who doesn't break off big plays, and aside from this year, doesn't score touchdowns. One of the most inefficient wide receivers in the NFL, and he's now basically getting top wide receiver money. So bravo, Miami. Your 5th consecutive off-season win is in doubt. But basically it means they're going to try and ship him, and it means whoever he goes to, they're going to have all the leverage because they're going to obviously have the cap space, but they're not going to give away a premium draft pick for this type of player, considering the type of wide receivers who are coming in this draft. So I'd be stunned if they got better than a 4th for him. The main
team that's been linked with him is the Chicago Bears. Is that kind of a additional safety blanket for Mitch Trubisky? We're not 100% sure he can throw it over 6 yards, so why make him?
Well, I think it's just to give him something, but it's the part of the the politician's logic. My dog has 4 legs, my cat has 4 legs, therefore my dog is a cat. It's we must do something. This is something, therefore we must do it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea. They need all kinds of receiver help, wide receiver and tight end. I would just question the logic, the reports that they want to trade Jordan Howard, one of the better red zone running backs in the NFL, for one of the most inefficient players in the NFL.
Yeah, the Jordan Howard thing, I do not understand. I mean, Tariq Cohen was a decent player and has loads of upside, but I'm not 100% sure he's an all-purpose 3-down back.
No, he doesn't take pressure off a young quarterback in the way that riding Jordan Howard could do.
Next, Dutton is Mr. Joyner from I nearly said St. Louis, Los Angeles Rams.
Kelsey Priest.
Kelsey Priest, yeah. I'm interested in this one because in theory what this does is a knock-on effect of, because Joyner is tagged, it means that Sammy Watkins will not be, and therefore Sammy Watkins goes into free agency.
Yeah. The Rams did open up some more cap space, trading Alec Ogletree to the Giants. Because I read somewhere it went, the Giants are currently in need of help at linebacker. Currently? Is this a scheduled article since the late 70s? Since Carl Banks and Lawrence Taylor retired?
Bill Barnwell put something similar. He's like, he's a Giants fan. He's like, the Giants care about linebackers for the first time.
Yeah, they really don't. Yeah, it's as you say, it's the knock-on. LaMarcus Joyner was, decent player. And it's still possible the Rams could re-sign Sammy Watkins, but basically now they are going to have to compete against, in theory, 31 other teams. I'd be stunned if he was back. The problem with Sammy Watkins is, when he's not healthy, people explain away his lack of production by saying, he's not healthy. And then last year he played all 16, and they explained away his lack of production with, he's obviously not very good. I'm sorry, you can't have it both ways.
It's weird, though, to be fair to Sammy Watkins, in St. Louis, they have I did it again. Yeah. In Los Angeles, they do this strange thing where game plan differently in every game. I know most teams don't do this. It's an interesting concept. I don't know if it'll catch on. So they never really had a number one wide receiver. They just happened to game plan in those games. So there was games where Watkins was number one, but if he is expecting to get one money, he's going to be sorely mistaken. Yeah, I mean,
he led the team with touchdown receptions, and ultimately the Rams' offense seems to be a physical embodiment of the term, well, who's the best wide receiver? The open one, because Sean McVay can get his wide receivers open. If he wants to do that, I mean, it's a nice niche to have. You'll never have more than 60 catches, but you'll have 8 to 10 touchdowns every year. Great. But if he wants to go and earn a bit more money and be the guy, then a team like Carolina maybe makes a bit of sense. I would have said the 49ers, but they've re-signed Marquise Goodwin today to a blonde. And I'm not saying they're the same player, but they offer a similar skill set, i.e. they're fast as all things.
Exactly, don't they? I guess the Joyner thing shows up the defense. They lose Robert Quinn, but I guess Quinn hadn't been the player he'd been before the injury, so I'm not surprised that they would let him go for a draft pick.
4-3 defensive ends do not tend to do well when turning to 3-4 outside linebackers. It's just not something they do well.
No, and as everyone knows, in terms of who we trust on defense, we're going with Wade.
Yeah, if Coach Phillips says no, you can go, please let him go, and then says yeah, you can trade Tree away as well, I'm trusting Coach Phillips.
I'm with him. Next one, I suppose, the most interesting one, and I suppose there's a context to this one. It's Le'Veon Bell. Since he has 129 yards per game in his career, that is the most yards from scrimmage per game since the merger. Now, in that context, you would expect that Le'Veon Bell would be paid like a quarterback. Mm-hmm. However, the NFL doesn't work like that. at running back. And in that context, the cap has gone up 7% this year, and the running back tag number has gone down.
Because they don't matter.
Even to the but it's like Le'Veon Bell is like on his own as an outlier, trying to say, no, look, we do matter. I'm Le'Veon Bell.
Best of luck with that. It's also as well noticeable that this is the man who would retire rather than play under the tag. No, you won't. Narrator voice, he would not. And he said, "Oh no, I won't hold out." Again, we know he won't. But what this does mean is that he won't be a Pittsburgh Steeler in 2019, because why tag him twice and then give him a long-term deal that's going to take him into his late 20s? No. They'll get the best out, as much out of him as they can, and they are probably in the hunt for his replacement very high in the draft, I thought, given the class of this running back, the talent of this running back class. They're doing what you're supposed to do. Get a running back, run him into the ground, get rid, rinse, lather, repeat.
Yeah, and absolutely, and I guess I suppose that it's one of those things that jumps out with you, that Le'Veon Bell, who in theory makes the Pittsburgh Steelers offense tick, is going to win $14 million this year, and Jarvis Landry is going to win 16.
Sad truth.
To players who weren't tagged up, first one, wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars, London's Jaguars, Allen Robinson. I guess injury at the wrong time does not help this. To think that when they were garbage and he put up a load of numbers, that he'd be good and he was injured, and that would almost put pay to him being relevant.
I personally think this will be a classic case of what the Ravens used to do very well with their free agents, which was go away, get some offers, come back to us, and we'll see if we'll see what we think. I don't think this is a case of, nah, you're gone. I think it is going to be a case of the Jaguars are prepared to let Allen Robinson go out and set his own market value, and they will then decide if they agree with it. Because ultimately, I think they're wide receivers, the youngsters like, Keelan Cole, Dede Westbrook, are good, but I don't think on their day they're anything like the player that Allen Robinson can be. And if they are going to continue to give Blake Bortles the rope to be the quarterback, it makes sense to give him more weapons and not take them away. Because obviously last year, I did an article this week for Numberfire, the most efficient red zone quarterbacks on a per-play basis in the NFL last season. And the fourth most efficient was Blake Bortles. And it wasn't just a case of, volume, didn't throw that many. No, he really did. So you give him someone like Allen Robinson in the red zone, it's going to help. You take Robinson away, you lose Marquise Lee, and then you're relying on Allen Hurns. I'm out.
The issue for Jacksonville is some stupid team, probably in the northeast of the United States of America, probably you play in the NFC East in burgundy and gold, will probably give Allen Robinson a lot more money than Jacksonville can. Sorry, shiny new big name thing. Onto the quarterbacks, Neil. First one, the okay quarterback, I guess, who had a really good year this year, and that's Case Keenum. Not been tagged by the Minnesota Vikings, who seem to have gone from 3 competent quarterbacks to 0 in a matter of moments. Interesting one for Keenum in terms of, do teams look at previous years or look at this year and pay him? I know he's probably had a better year and he's younger, but this strikes me as very similar to Fitzmagic in the Jets year where they went 10-6.
Adam Rank, friend of the show, who we really need to get back on again, by the way, it's been far too long, calls this the Yasmin Bleeth quandary, in that you're only ever going to be so popular, so in demand. That's when you do the shoots. That's when you do the shoots to get your baps out, because you'll get that much money for them. Don't wait 5 years; no one's going to be interested. Case Keenum, probably the best thing for him is that he's put numbers up that make him look competent, efficient, and the answer to someone's dreams. People will ignore the fact that the coaches who are around him every day don't seem to agree.
Yeah.
But he'll go somewhere else. I mean, the worst that could have been for him long term would have been he plays a year under the tag with Minnesota. He sucks, and then has to take a handout in 2019. Whereas this way, he gets to go somewhere else and get 2-3 year deal with a decent amount guaranteed. And then if he should just accidentally fall into being competent, he'll do okay.
I think the issue for Keenum as well is the quarterback class this year. That does not help his market value because he won't get as much money as quarterbacks aren't in a sparser supply in everybody's head. Now, we obviously know that 50% of the quarterbacks coming out of the draft won't be any good. That in kind of percentage terms. And people know what Case Keenum is. People don't know what these quarterbacks are. And that's why you hear ridiculous talks of 5 or 6 quarterbacks going in the first round.
Oh yeah, I'd say he's shown he can be competent, as long as everything's working with him. As long as he's got a good offensive line, he's got a decent ground game, he's got 2 stud wide receivers and one of the best tight ends in the game, especially when it comes to the red zone. That helps. If he goes somewhere like the Jets and the Broncos, I don't think he's the tide that lifts all boats, especially the Broncos. Von Miller, little hint to yourself, son. Stop saying that adding Kirk Cousins automatically makes you a Super Bowl contender. Not only is that blatantly untrue, you're making yourself look stupid.
Onto said Kirk Cousins, who, let's be honest, has been freed from the torture, heartache and despair of being paid $45 million over the past 2 years. How did he cope? How did he cope? Think of the children.
Yeah, won't someone please think of the children?
Won't someone please think of the children? Poor, hard done by Kirk Cousins, who wasn't dealt with properly, got $45 million.
I wish that I was treated so shabbily.
This is the thing, and he has an issue he has an issue in Washington of not being the shiny thing that the owner wanted. But the other issue for him was that he was more than competent, so got financially paid for it, but not quite well enough to be paid long term by Washington. However, rumours of $91 million guaranteed by a certain team in Minnesota suggest that Kirk's going to be all right.
Especially, as I say, that's supposed to be a 3-year deal, the report I read. 3 years, $91 million, fully guaranteed. It's fully guaranteed, and in 3 years' time, he can go back onto the free agent market, potentially. Probably, I would imagine, any contract he signs is going to have a no franchise tag clause in it now. So if he runs the risk, say, of making $91 million, and then in 3 years' time, assuming he's performed, being able to turn around to the Vikings or the next generation of needy teams and say, "Yep."
I'm interested in Mr. Cousins in one respect, in that in that 3 year $91 million looks exceptional, right? It does, no doubt. But what happens if that team in the AFC East in green decides to throw even more money at him? What does he do in terms of, does he want to win, or does he want to earn a lot of more money?
Well, that's the question. I mean, obviously, as we are finding out, some NFL executives don't like the idea of wealthy players coming into the league because it makes them question their desire. Yeah, bullshit. So it comes down to whatever Kirk Cousins wants to do. If he wants to win and get paid, he'll go to the Vikings. If he just wants to get paid, he'll go to the Jets. And they're running the risk of turning into the Browns with, all the names on the back.
Yeah, they're getting close.
Why not? Go there.
It's not been good since Chad, let's put it like that. What I will say to Kirk is, if he goes to Minnesota and he's got the offensive coordinator from the Eagles, we could be in Minnesota. Don't get your hopes up, but you could be back in business.
No.
Final thing, we talked about it last week in Indianapolis. Everyone went. The great and the good of the NFL went to have, I think, steak. I think that's the only thing they serve in Indianapolis.
There's St. Elmo's and Schuler's. I think that's pretty much the only place you can go.
Exactly, and there's a great story around all of the old Cleveland Browns coaches meeting together to have a Browns suck party. Did you hear the name of the bar they went to?
No.
Rock Bottom, not lying.
Brilliant.
Not even lying.
I'm not going to lie to you right now. Rock Bottom, a 30-minute, 6 episode of 30 minutes sitcom on that very topic. Literally just getting them all round table, just sitting down for 30 minutes at a time and just recording them shooting the breeze. Trust me, NBC, if you don't make it, Sky will.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get on to winners and losers, Dutton. And first winner is a quarterback who I don't think many people would believe he would be a winner if they knew us, mainly you. And I've spoken to Fantasy Mansion, our friend, our hero, one of the angriest men on the planet, and that's Josh Allen, quarterback from Wyoming. Done.
Yeah, never Josh Allen. I think it's one of those, to a degree, we're looking at people who their stock improved because of what they did in Indianapolis. Josh Allen went in with, I'd say he was a polarising figure. By that I mean half of people think he was adequate, the other half think he was crap. He was, of the drills that I watched, yes, I watched the quarterback's drills. I was, it was either that or All Together Now, whatever it's called, glorified karaoke. He didn't look too bad. He completed, some passes, and he looked better than advertised. I think that just helps him. I'm not saying it suddenly propels him, best quarterback in the class. I think it just means that it creates doubt that he's not the worst. So I think, from that point of view, he did himself no harm at all.
I love this kind of game. I really do. Like, this time of year is absolutely brilliant because players who were excellent in college and won things start to become absolute losers and vice versa. I find it really comical. Josh Allen won games for Wyoming. If you follow college sports, that's pretty difficult. It's not really a hotbed. It's not really Alabama. He had a completion percentage of 56%. True. But, again, I come back to the fact he wasn't throwing to the greatest team in the world. Is he great? I don't know. I don't know. That's why we leave that kind of thing to the draft professionals. But I do love the fact that he, people can tell me he is absolutely terrible. Well, I'm not sure he's terrible, but I understand what you're saying. And the same with Sam Darnold, and the same with Josh Rosen, and the same with Baker Mayfield. Although the Baker Mayfield one makes me laugh the most, as you know, he won at the highest level. But anyway.
Yeah, but he pointed at his crotch.
He did, and I think that's one of the reasons I like him even more.
I should point out playerprofiler.com. Speaking of Fancy Mansion, the podfather himself, in terms of best comparable players to Josh Allen. So this is a combination of their workout metrics, college production, and various things. Best comparable player, Brock Osweiler.
It's not gonna fly. It's not gonna fly. Although just to prove, stats can prove anything. He does have a better completion percentage in college than John Elway did.
Yeah, but unfortunately, he also has the same completion percentage as Christian Hackenberg.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. We can make stats prove anything, but to be fair, Player Profiler doesn't do it like that. They use multitude of different stats. Me and Neil are playing, so that is a clear buyer beware on Brock Osweiler.
Yeah.
Massive. We're now into two real massive winners from the combine, and the first one is Mike Gesicki. Is it Gesicki?
Gesicki.
Who was the tight end from Penn State. Dutton, who is, I suppose, the tight end guru of all things tight end. Taught me through Mike Gesicki.
Well, Gesicki comes from Penn State, where obviously there was, another player who tended to get a bit of attention for them over the last few years, Saquon Barkley. This helped the fact because Gesicki wasn't exactly a target monster, didn't get an awful lot of, didn't dominate the targets, and can't block for shit. So obviously that doesn't help. But from an athletic and a measurables point of view, he was absolutely phenomenal. And he had one of the greatest tight end combines of all time. The name that sprang to mind was Vernon Davis, who went from being okay to the number 6 pick in the draft because of what he achieved, basically what he achieved at the combine. If you look at Gesicki's workouts, he ran a 4.54 40. He had a 118.7 speed score, 137.1 burst score, a 10.86 agility score, and has a 10.65 catch radius. Every single one of those stats is in the 95th percentile among tight ends. As I say, he's not great. I don't think he's going to be put this way, he's still not the best tight end in this class. He just looks like he's the most athletic.
What I like about it's like the NFL has created a new player, right? And Mike Gesicki fits into this mold. They call them move tight ends.
Tweeners, they used to call them.
Yeah, exactly. They're fat wide receivers who don't block. And that's what Mike Gesicki... I'm joking, he's not fat, obviously. But, he is a wide receiver and all, but the fact that he doesn't line up as a wide receiver, he lines up as a tight end, but he doesn't block.
Yeah.
And the last one, in terms of winners, is the best story of the draft, and best story of the combine. If you haven't seen it, where have you been? And that's Shaquem Griffin, who's the linebacker from the undefeated and the self-proclaimed college champions, the Central UCF Knights. I think
UCF Knights, yeah.
If you're not aware of Shaquem is unfortunately only has one hand, but somehow managed to do 20 reps of the bar and also just caught routes and did amazing things. Talk me through him, Neil.
Well, he wasn't even invited to the combine, so he basically used the Senior Bowl as a soapbox to get the evaluators to change their mind and get him evaluated. His twin brother plays for the Seahawks.
Was he caught this week?
No, he wasn't caught. He also wasn't traded.
He was one of the 3 people who's still on the roster. Then, okay.
He's still there. He wasn't traded for a bag of
spoons.
Plastic knives. We know that one constant that comes from the Seahawks, they don't always get it right, but they do value athleticism. So spark, that metric, which is all manner of rubbish. I don't really understand what it means. He scored very high in that. So, just looking at Pete Carroll's face when he ran the 40-yard dash, just call the pick in now, Pete. Just get in touch with Rog and say, look, at some point we're going to call his name. We don't know just how high yet. It's a great story because I say it's someone overcoming adversity to the nth degree, and ultimately, it's a great story for any follower of the game.
He played in an undefeated team in college this year. He played, and we only played Central Florida. They beat Auburn in the Peach Bowl, so they did beat an SEC team. They are tremendously talented, and it's one of those situations. He is, based on my understanding, he's only 225, I think, pounds. So there's probably a possibility that he may go backwards from linebacker to safety or corner. Not something that he could be adverse to, as his twin brother, who is already in the NFL, is a corner, as you quite rightly mentioned, for the Seattle Seahawks.
As we say, we talked before about this idea of an offensive tweener. That type of player brings about this type of player, as in someone who probably, if he's going to come up against like a mauling offensive guard, probably isn't going to be able to match. But in terms of his speed, he can probably match up in terms of speed with slot receivers and tight ends. Yeah. It's just a question of, is he strong enough to, if they get a march on him in coverage, can he get them down?
Absolutely, Neil. There were losers, though, Dutton. There were losers, and you're going to tell me one now that, based on what I'd read, was not the case. But you're going to explain to the world, or the four people, as you quite rightly point out, why Saquon Barkley, running back from Penn State, everyone's number one pick in the draft, was a loser this week.
Well, I'll come on to it, but it's basically what you just said then. Saquon Barkley obviously had a great workout, 4.4 40-yard dash, 124.3 speed score, 134.7 burst score, and did 29 reps on the bench. We know he was, uber productive coming out of Penn State. Because he had such a good combine, he has now propelled himself into the first overall pick conversation. I don't want to be a stud running back that goes to a team like the Cleveland Browns that abandons the run at the first available opportunity. It is a toxic franchise being run by two dinosaurs who are going to destroy the work of the last 2 years. They already tried to do this by trading away valuable picks for A.J. McCarron. I don't want him going anywhere near it. This is probably a generational talent who's going to have at least 8 games where he'll have less than 10 carries because they're going to be behind and they'll just decide, we'll just throw it then. He loses. He is the huge loser from this. And anyone who's interested in him in dynasty leagues or redraft, we're all the losers as well because now the Browns will almost certainly take him.
So that's very true, Neil. What I'd like for the defence is that the teams that Saquon Barkley was going to go to, even if he would have not turned up for the combine, there's only 3 teams he would have gone to. Okay, he would have gone to the Cleveland Browns at 1 or 4. He would have gone to the New York Football Giants at 2. If you think that the Browns don't run, you ain't seen nothing like in New York. Oh, and the third one, the Indianapolis Colts, that renowned team who haven't really ran since Edger and frickin' James. So nothing has changed for Saquon Barkley. He is going to a team who don't run, who have no offensive line, and are going to abandon the run at the first moment.
It comes to something when I trust the likes of Pat Shurmur and especially Frank Reich to be able to use him in a creative way, more so than Todd Haley, who, there must be something about him why he keeps getting jobs, because everything I read or see about him, he just looks like an absolute a-hole. And Hugh Jackson, who I wouldn't trust to run a bath, let alone an NFL team.
True, Neil, true. Let's get on to Orlando Brown, who kind of turned up to the... It's like when you turn up for school an hour and a half late and your shirt's undone, you didn't really sort your tie out, and where's your homework? Oh, the dog ate it. We got PE today. Oh, I forgot my kids. Do you know what I mean? And basically, Orlando Brown was doing dance in his boxers. And his belly was hanging out.
It was Vontaze Burfict was going to go in the first round, if anyone remembers, but then due to off-the-field concerns, he actually ended up going undrafted. We spoke to Charles Davis not 2 weeks ago, and Orlando Brown was in the middle of the first round. He's not getting drafted now. If that is how unprepared you're going to be for that situation, I'm not even going to your pro day, pal. It's as you say, if you turned up, it's as you say, if you turn up that late for school, I'm hoping you're this late because you're actually catching up on work. No, I was at Schuler's. But basically, you just turned up to eat. And so many people have said it is the worst athletic performance they've ever seen. And some people have been watching Rich Eisen try and run the 40-yard dash for 10 years, but they still said this was the least athletic thing they've ever seen in their life.
I know the college players probably say, look at the tape I've had for the past 3 years. I completely understand that, right? But these are job interviews, people, okay? Yeah. Whether you like it or not, this is a job interview. And you need to impress one of 32 teams. Turning
at least.
At least, yeah. Turning up, fat, out of shape, and not really caring is not going to get you drafted.
Yeah. As a line from a great film, fat, drunk and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Final one's up. It's Another running back. It's a running back from USC, and it's Roland Jones.
Ronald Jones. I feel slightly sorry for Ronald Jones because he didn't disgrace himself. He just he got hurt, so he wasn't able to fully take part in the on-field drills. Now I spoke with he's getting another name drop now, Fancy Mansion, last week on the Roto Underworld radio show, and I've seen Ronald Jones compared to Jamal Charles because he's got long hair and he wears 25. And someone said he's like Jamal Charles without the receiving ability, so nothing like Jamal Charles then.
That makes him like, as you said, like things Jamal Charles is good at, catching.
Yeah.
Things Ronald Jones is good at, not good at catching. Therefore, not the same player.
Yeah, it's like this is just as good as an iPhone, but it's not an iPhone. That's basically what that comparison is. Yeah. Now, obviously, if he'd, it would have been good for him to have a chance in front of the evaluators to show what he could do in the on-field drills, especially the pass-catching ones. I mean, I like Jones. I think just watching him run, and again, you know how high a bit of praise this is for me, I think he looks a bit like Brian Westbrook. But then, again, we come to the receiving part of it. Brian Westbrook.
I don't think you can survive in the league being Jamal Charles / Brian Westbrook with an inability to catch.
Yeah. It's about, he could, he could sing like Frank Sinatra, but he's mute. He's nothing like Frank Sinatra. Then I think, at his pro day, assuming he's fit, he will be able to climb back up again. But I just think because of the performance of some of the running backs, like, Darius Geis, apart from his actual interview, people like that, Sonny Michel, Royce Freeman, I think he may fall down a bit, but ultimately he'll still have a chance to rebound.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's it. We're on the straight now to the draft and heading straight into free agency. More NFL to come over the next few weeks. More interviews over the next few weeks, which we can't wait to do. As always, you can speak to myself and Neil. I am at Mainsy7, who managed to catch his own father with an absolute classic fish bait yesterday when I retweeted this is a combined Liverpool-Manchester United team and then just named 1 to 11 Liverpool. Dad responded with, "Where's De Gea?" Yes, Dad, it was a joke. But bravo for also playing yourself by only saying one of your players can get in my team.
And that's a goalie. That's been that's been snaffled at Goalie Billy. I'm terribly sorry about that.
Neil is at ndutton13, naming all women he's ever met in International Women's Day, apart from the one he shared the house with for 30 years.
Yeah. See, my sister never goes on Twitter, except at the times when I say things and forget about it.
Yeah, bravo. Together we are at waxing_lyrical. We will be back next week, but until then, these top guys are out.